The worst decisions in life rarely feel like decisions at all. The rain hit my face so hard it felt like the sky was trying to push me back. Every breath burned. Every step splashed through inches of water gathering along the empty sidewalk. Midnight in Westchester County was supposed to be quiet, safe, predictable. Instead, I was running through a neighborhood I didn't recognize, clutching my soaked purse against my chest, while my heart hammered so loudly I could barely hear anything else. My name is Olivia Carter, and 3 hours earlier, I had been driving home after a 12-hour shift at a rehabilitation clinic in Manhattan. My biggest concern had been whether I had enough gas to make it through the week before payday. Then my car broke down on a deserted road during the worst thunderstorm I'd seen all year. My phone battery died shortly afterward. No signal. No GPS. No way to call for help. At first, I thought I could wait inside the car until the storm passed. Then I saw headlights stop behind me. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was someone trying to help. But something about the way the vehicle sat there without moving made every instinct in my body scream at me to leave. So I did. I grabbed my purse, locked the car, and started walking. The rain soaked through my jacket within minutes. My sneakers squished with every step. The cold worked its way through my skin and into my bones. After nearly 40 minutes of walking, I spotted lights in the distance. Houses. Large houses. The kind with stone walls, iron gates, and driveways longer than some city blocks. Relief nearly made my knees buckle. All I needed was a phone. One phone call. One kind stranger. One dry place to stand for 5 minutes. Thunder cracked overhead. I flinched and hurried through an open gate that led toward the largest house on the street. The mansion sat atop a small hill, its windows glowing gold against the darkness. Expensive. Imposing. Almost intimidating. But at that moment it looked like salvation. I climbed the stone steps 2 at a time. Water dripped from my hair into my eyes. My fingers shook as I reached for the doorbell. Once. Twice. 3 times. Nothing. I knocked. Harder this time. The sound echoed through the storm. For several seconds nothing happened. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. My stomach tightened. Something about those footsteps felt wrong. Not threatening exactly. Just powerful. Like whoever was behind that door wasn't accustomed to being interrupted. A lock clicked. Then another. Then another. The massive door opened inward. Forgot how to breathe. The man standing there looked like he had stepped out of another world entirely. Tall. Broad shoulders. Dark hair pushed back from a face that belonged on the cover of a magazine. He wore a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. Rain and golden light framed him like something out of a movie. But it wasn't his appearance that froze me in place. It was what he was holding. A handgun rested loosely in one hand, pointed safely toward the floor. Not raised. Not threatening. Just there. Real enough to stop every thought in my head. His eyes met mine. Cold green eyes that seemed to assess everything at once. The rain. My soaked clothes. My shaking hands. The fear written all over my face. For one long second neither of us spoke. Then his gaze shifted somewhere behind me. His expression changed. Only slightly, but enough for me to notice. When he looked back at me, his voice was calm. Controlled. Dangerous in a way I couldn't explain. You're 5 seconds too late. I stared at him, trying to understand what he meant, but my brain felt numb from the cold and exhaustion. Rainwater dripped from my hair onto the stone porch between us. Behind him, warm light spilled across a polished floor that looked nothing like the world I had stumbled through for the last hour. What does that mean? I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I intended. His eyes held mine for another second before shifting past me again toward the darkness beyond the driveway. The expression on his face sharpened, focused, calculating. Then he stepped aside. Get inside. The words were not a request. I should have left. Every instinct told me that entering a stranger's mansion at midnight was a terrible idea, especially when that stranger was holding a gun. But another gust of wind drove cold rain against my back, and I realized I was shaking so hard my teeth were beginning to chatter. I crossed the threshold. The door closed behind me with a heavy sound that echoed through the enormous foyer. Warm air wrapped around me immediately. For the first time in an hour I could feel my fingers again. The house was impossibly elegant. Marble floors. A sweeping staircase. Soft lighting. Everything looked expensive and perfectly controlled. Yet beneath the luxury was something else. Something tense. Like the entire house was holding its breath. The man locked the door and turned toward me. Close, he seemed even taller. More imposing. "Your name," he said. "Olivia Carter. Why are you here?" "My car broke down. My phone died. I was looking for help." He studied me carefully, not just listening to my words, evaluating them, looking for cracks, looking for lies. "You walked here." "About 2 miles, maybe a little more." He glanced at my soaked sneakers and nodded slightly, as if confirming something. Before he could speak again, movement appeared at the far end of the hallway. 2 men in dark suits approached quickly. They looked professional, alert. One of them stopped when he saw me. Surprise flashed across his face. "Boss," he said. "We checked the perimeter." His eyes moved toward me. "Who is she?" "Boss." The word landed heavily. Something about it immediately explained the authority I had sensed from the moment the door opened. The man beside me answered without looking away from me. "I do not know yet." That answer somehow made me more nervous. The second man handed him a tablet. He glanced at the screen briefly. The room seemed to grow quieter, more serious. Whatever information he was reading, he did not like it. The 2 men exchanged looks. Not fear. Concern. The kind shared between people facing a problem that was getting worse. I swallowed hard. "Look, I can leave if this is a bad time." All 3 men looked at me. The statement sounded ridiculous the moment it left my mouth. Outside was a storm. Inside was whatever this situation happened to be. The man finally lowered the tablet. "No." His voice remained calm. Controlled. "You cannot." My stomach tightened. Why? For the first time, something almost human flickered behind those cold green eyes. Not anger. Not suspicion. Something closer to reluctant concern. He looked toward the front windows where rain continued to lash against the glass. Then he met my gaze again. "Because whoever was following you is already here." For a second I thought I had misheard him. The storm rattled the windows behind us, and somewhere deeper in the mansion a grandfather clock chimed once, the sound low and distant. "Nobody was following me," I said. The words came out faster than I intended. "I told you my car broke down. I walked here." The man everyone called boss watched me carefully. His expression did not change. Maybe. That single word unsettled me more than if he had outright accused me of lying. One of the men in suits stepped closer and handed him a small earpiece. He listened silently for several seconds. The tension in the room tightened. Then he removed it and looked directly at me again. "What road were you on?" "Route 117. "What time did your car stop?" "A little after 11. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not suspicious. Thinking. Calculating. Like pieces were moving inside his head that I could not see. "What kind of car?" "A blue Honda Civic." One of the men immediately pulled out his phone. Within seconds he was typing. Looking something up. The efficiency of it all made me feel like I had accidentally walked into a place where normal rules did not exist. "Damien," the second man said quietly. It was the first time I heard someone use his name. Damien Moretti. Somehow it fit. Strong. Controlled. Dangerous. He turned toward the speaker. The 2 exchanged a look that seemed to communicate far more than words. Then Damien nodded once. "Check it." The man disappeared down the hallway. I wrapped my arms around myself. My clothes were still damp. My body was exhausted, yet every nerve felt wide awake. "Who are you people?" I asked. Neither man answered immediately. Damien finally set the tablet down on a nearby console table. "People who solve problems." That was not an answer. Not really. But something told me it was. The only one I was going to get. Another flash of lightning illuminated the windows. The brief burst of white light revealed security cameras positioned throughout the foyer. More than any normal house would ever need. My gaze drifted toward the front door. Toward freedom. Toward the storm. Damien noticed. Of course he noticed. He seemed to notice everything. "You are thinking about leaving. Can you blame me?" His jaw tightened slightly. Not offended. Just aware. No. The honesty surprised me. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed from the staircase above. I looked up. A woman in her 60s descended slowly, wearing a cream-colored sweater and reading glasses. She looked entirely out of place among the tension and expensive suits. Her silver hair was neatly pinned back. Her expression softened the moment she saw me. "Good heavens," she said. "The poor girl is soaked." Damien's expression changed instantly. The cold edge disappeared. Not completely, but enough for me to notice. "Maria, it is late. And yet here we all are." She ignored him and continued downstairs. When she reached me, she gently touched my arm. "You look frozen." The kindness nearly broke something inside me. After the night I had endured, after the fear and uncertainty and strange conversations, that simple concern felt overwhelming. "Thank you," I whispered. Maria smiled warmly. Then she looked at Damien. "Whatever is happening can wait 5 minutes. She needs dry clothes and a cup of tea." Damien opened his mouth as if to argue, then stopped. A rare silence followed. Maria raised one eyebrow. To my complete shock, Damien surrendered first. "Fine." She smiled in victory. But as she guided me toward a hallway, I glanced back one last time. Damien had moved to one of the front windows, his attention fixed on the darkness outside. And for the first time since I arrived, I saw something unexpected in his expression. Concern. Real concern. Not for himself. For me. Maria led me through a quiet wing of the mansion that felt more like a luxury hotel than a private home. Soft lamps glowed against cream-colored walls. Framed photographs lined the hallway. Not business awards. Not expensive. Artwork. Family pictures. Vacations. Birthdays. Ordinari moments. The sight felt strangely comforting. Nothing about Damien Moretti had seemed ordinary until now. A few minutes later I stood in a guest bedroom larger than my entire apartment. Dry clothes waited on the bed. A warm cup of tea sat on the nightstand beside a folded towel. Maria smiled as she moved toward the door. "Take your time, Olivia." I hesitated. Who exactly is Damien? The question made her pause. For a moment she seemed to choose her words carefully. "He is a man who carries more responsibility than most people can imagine." That was not really an answer either. Apparently nobody in this house gave direct answers. After she left, I changed into the dry clothes and wrapped my cold hands around the tea mug. The warmth helped. So did the silence. For the first time all night I could think clearly. Or at least I tried to. Nothing about the evening made sense. My car breaking down. The strange vehicle that stopped behind me. The long walk through the storm. Damien's warning. The tension throughout the mansion. It all felt disconnected. Like separate pieces from different puzzles. I wandered toward the window. Rain still hammered against the glass. Beyond the estate grounds, darkness swallowed everything. I could not even see the road anymore. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Before I could answer, the door opened. Damien stepped inside. My pulse immediately quickened. He looked different now. Less intimidating somehow. Maybe because he was not holding a gun. Maybe because the sharp edges of the night seemed softer under the warm light. His gaze moved briefly toward the tea. "Maria wins again." I blinked. What? She always gets her way. The comment surprised a laugh out of me. A small one, but real. Something shifted in his expression when he heard it. Not a smile exactly. More like approval. He stepped farther into the room. "We found your car." My stomach dropped. "You did?" He nodded. "Exactly where you said it would be." Relief flooded through me. Finally. Proof. Validation. "So you know I was telling the truth. About the car." My relief faded slightly. "You still think I am lying?" "I think something does not add up." The words were calm. Matter of fact. "What does that mean?" Damien walked toward the bookshelf near the fireplace. His fingers traced the edge of a framed photograph sitting there. Then he turned back toward me. "The road where your car stopped is isolated. Yet less than 15 minutes after you abandoned it, someone drove through that area asking questions about a woman matching your description." Every muscle in my body tightened. That is impossible. Maybe. There was that word again. Maybe. But it happened. I stared at him, my mind racing, trying to remember every detail. Every face. Every moment from earlier that evening. Then a memory surfaced. Small. Insignificant. Something I had dismissed at the time. The gas station. My breath caught. Damien noticed immediately. What? I slowly looked up at him. I think someone may have seen me before my car broke down. Damien did not speak for several seconds. He simply watched me, waiting. The storm continued outside, distant thunder rolling across the estate like a warning that refused to go away. I sat down on the edge of the bed and tried to organize my thoughts. The memory felt frustratingly incomplete, like trying to grab smoke with my bare hands. Tell me everything, Damien said. His voice remained calm, but there was a focus behind it now that made me sit a little straighter. Before my car broke down, I stopped for gas. I rubbed my forehead. There was a small station about 15 miles back. I was tired. I bought coffee. Damien nodded once. Go on. There was a man there. The image became clearer the more I spoke. He was standing near the counter, maybe 40 years old. Dark jacket, baseball cap. I paused. At the time I did not think anything about him was strange. And now, I looked toward the rain-covered window. Now I remember him watching me. Damien's expression sharpened slightly. Watching you how? Not normal watching. The realization sent a chill through me. More like he was trying to memorize me. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Thoughtful. Damien glanced toward the door as if connecting pieces I still could not see. Did you speak to him? No. Did he speak to you? No, I shook my head. I barely noticed him until now. Damien exhaled slowly. Not frustrated. Calculating. Every time he became quiet, it felt like an entire chess game was unfolding behind his eyes. What happened after you left the station? About 20 minutes later my car started acting strange. I frowned. The engine warning light came on. Damien looked directly at me. Had it ever happened before? Never. The room suddenly felt colder. Not physically. Emotionally. Because for the first time a possibility entered my mind that I did not like. At all. You think someone did something to my car? I asked. Damien did not answer immediately. That alone was enough. My stomach dropped. Olivia. His voice softened slightly. Right now I do not know what happened. I only know that too many coincidences are piling up in one night. A knock interrupted us. One of the suited men entered. It was the same man who had checked my car earlier. Boss. He handed Damien a folder. We found this. Damien opened it. His eyes moved across the pages, then stopped. For the first time since I had met him, genuine surprise crossed his face. It lasted less than a second, but I saw it. What? I asked. Neither man answered. Damien continued reading. The silence stretched. Damien. He finally looked up. Your rehabilitation clinic. My heart skipped. What about it? You have worked there 3 years. Yes. And before that? Graduate school. His gaze remained fixed on me. And before that? I frowned. Why does that matter? He closed the folder. Because somebody spent considerable time researching you. Every sound in the room seemed to disappear. Then, thunder. Everything. What are you talking about? Damien walked toward me and placed the folder on the bed. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page contained my photograph. The second listed my workplace. The third contained my apartment address. I felt the blood drain from my face. I have never seen this before, I whispered. Damien believed me. I could tell. For the first time all night, there was no suspicion in his eyes. Only concern. Real concern. The kind that made my pulse race even faster. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. Olivia, somebody was looking for you. The words hit harder than they should have. Somebody was looking for me. Not a celebrity. Not a politician. Not someone important. Me. Olivia Carter. A physical therapy assistant who spent her days helping patients relearn how to walk after injuries. Nothing about my life had ever been extraordinary. Until tonight. I stared at the folder in my lap. My photograph seemed to stare back at me. Familiar. Ordinary. Yet somehow connected to something I could not understand. Why? I asked quietly. Damien remained standing near the fireplace. The glow from the flames cast soft shadows across his face. That is the question. I looked down at the pages again. My apartment. My workplace. Even my college information. Someone had spent weeks collecting details about my life. The realization made my skin crawl. Who would do this? Damien exchanged a glance with the suited man. Neither seemed eager to answer. We do not know yet, Damien said finally. But we are going to find out. The certainty in his voice should have comforted me. Instead, it raised another question. Why are you helping me? Silence followed. Not awkward. Just unexpected. Damien looked away first. Toward the rain tapping against the windows. Because you walked into this house tonight. I almost laughed. That is not a reason. It is for me. The answer was simple. Honest. And somehow more confusing than anything else he had said. The suited man quietly left the room, closing the door behind him. Suddenly the enormous guest suite felt much smaller. Quieter. Just me and Damien. The storm. The fire. Questions neither of us could answer. You still think I am hiding something? I asked. Damien studied me carefully. For a long moment I thought he might say yes. Instead he slowly shook his head. No, my breath caught. No. People lie to protect themselves. His voice remained calm. But fear leaves patterns. Yours does not match deception. I was not sure whether to feel relieved or unsettled by the fact that he could apparently analyze emotions like a scientist studying data. So what now? I asked. Now you stay here. The response came immediately. Firm. Final. Absolutely not. Damien raised one eyebrow. No. I have a job. At 7 in the morning. My eyes widened. How do you know that? Your schedule was in the file. Right. Of course it was. Somehow that answer only made everything feel stranger. I stood and walked toward the window. Rain streaked across the glass. Somewhere beyond the estate grounds was my normal life. My apartment. My coworkers. My routines. Yet for the first time the thought of returning there made me nervous. Damien joined me near the window. Not too close. Just close enough that I noticed the faint scent of cedar and expensive cologne. Olivia. His voice softened slightly. Until we know who is looking for you, leaving would be a mistake. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was overreacting. That this entire situation was impossible. But deep down, a terrible truth had already taken root. The file existed. The questions existed. The fear existed. None of it was imaginary. Then Damien's phone vibrated. He checked the screen. His expression changed instantly. Cold. Focused. Dangerous. My stomach tightened. What is it? I asked. Damien looked up from the phone. The security team found the vehicle that stopped behind your car tonight. My pulse spiked. And he slipped the phone into his pocket. It belongs to someone connected to a company that should not know your name. The statement hung in the air between us. A company that should not know my name. I stared at Damien, waiting for him to explain, but his attention had already shifted into that focused, analytical mode I was beginning to recognize. Somewhere inside his mind, pieces were connecting. Pieces I still could not see. What company? I asked. Damien remained silent for a moment. Then he walked toward a small table near the fireplace and picked up the folder again. 3 months ago, a technology firm purchased a group of smaller businesses throughout New York. Okay. One of those businesses handled medical data storage. My stomach tightened. Medical data? He nodded. Patient records. Employment records. Insurance files. Suddenly the room felt smaller. I work in healthcare. Exactly. I sat down slowly. A terrible possibility was beginning to form. Not complete. Not clear. But enough to make my pulse race. You think this has something to do with my clinic? Damien did not answer immediately. That silence was answer enough. A knock sounded at the door. The same suited man entered again. This time his expression was more serious than before. He handed Damien a tablet. Damien scanned the screen. The muscles in his jaw tightened. What now? I asked. He looked up. Your apartment building. Every nerve in my body went alert. What about it? Security footage shows two individuals entering the building within the last hour. My breath caught. Do they live there? No, the room became very quiet. Rain tapped against the windows. The fire crackled softly. Somewhere downstairs a clock chimed another hour. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. Yet nothing felt normal anymore. Maybe they were visiting someone, I said, though even I did not believe it. Damien looked directly at me. Maybe. There was that word again. But this time neither of us trusted it. I stood and walked back toward the window. My reflection stared back at me through the glass. Pale. Exhausted. Frightened. Less than 6 hours ago I had been worried about gas money and paperwork. Now strangers were connected to my apartment, my workplace, and a file containing details of my entire life. None of it made sense. I do not understand why this is happening, I whispered. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Damien surprised me. Neither do I. I turned toward him. There was no arrogance in his voice. No certainty. Just honesty. Somehow that made me trust him more. He stepped closer, not invading my space, simply standing beside me as we both looked out at the storm. When I first saw you at the door, he said quietly, I thought you were connected to something else entirely. Something dangerous? A faint smile touched one corner of his mouth. In my world, those are usually the same thing. Despite everything, I found myself smiling back. Just slightly. It disappeared almost immediately when another thought struck me. Damien. What? If somebody really is looking for me? I hesitated. What happens when they find me? His expression became serious again. The warmth vanished. The calm remained. They will not. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it made me realize something I had not considered before. Damien Moretti was not hoping to protect me. He had already decided he would. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. For the first time all night, I saw genuine surprise flash across his face. He answered immediately. Listen. Said nothing. When the call ended, he slowly lowered the phone. What happened? I asked. Damien looked directly at me. We found out why someone was researching you. My heart began pounding before Damien even spoke again. Something in his expression told me this answer mattered. Not just to me. To him as well. The storm outside seemed to fade into the background as I waited. What did they find? I asked. Damien set his phone on the table beside the fireplace. 3 months ago, your clinic participated in a pilot program. I frowned. Lots of clinics do pilot programs. This one involved patient recovery analytics. I stared at him blankly. I have no idea what that means. A faint shadow of amusement crossed his face. It means large companies were studying treatment outcomes, physical therapy, rehabilitation, recovery patterns. I still did not understand. Damien continued. One of the people overseeing that project resigned suddenly 6 weeks ago. Okay. 2 weeks later, internal records disappeared. The room seemed to grow quieter with every sentence. What does that have to do with me? Damien looked directly at me. That is exactly what my people are trying to determine. I sat down slowly. My mind raced through months of ordinary workdays. Patients. Evaluations. Paperwork. Coffee breaks. Nothing felt important enough to justify any of this. I am not a researcher, I said. I am not even part of management. I know. Then why would anyone care about me? Damien did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward the bookshelf and pulled out a framed photograph. It showed him standing beside an elderly man with silver hair. Both were smiling. The image felt strangely personal, human. Sometimes people become important because of what they know. He set the photograph back down carefully. Other times they become important because of what they accidentally saw. A chill ran through me. Accidentally saw. The phrase triggered something. Not a memory exactly. More like a feeling. A detail buried beneath dozens of ordinary moments. Wait. Damien turned toward me immediately. What? I closed my eyes. Searching. Digging. A few weeks ago I stayed late at the clinic. The memory sharpened. Most of the staff had already left. Damien remained silent. Listening. I remember seeing two men arguing near one of the administrative offices. Did you recognize them? No, I shook my head. One was wearing a visitor badge. The more I remembered, the more uneasy I felt. I was not trying to listen. I just happened to walk past. What were they arguing about? I swallowed. Data. Damien's eyes narrowed. What kind of data? I do not know. Frustration crept into my voice. I only heard a few words. He stepped closer. Which words? The answer came back with surprising clarity. Access. I paused. Transfer. Another pause. And exposure. Damien went completely still. That frightened me more than any dramatic reaction could have. What? I asked quietly. Damien, what is it? He looked away for a moment. Toward the storm. Toward thoughts I could not follow. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. Too calm. Olivia. Yes. I think you were never the target. Confusion flooded through me. What? His gaze locked onto mine. I think somebody believes you have information they desperately need. For several seconds I could not speak. The fire crackled softly behind us. Rain continued tapping against the windows. Everything looked exactly the same. Yet somehow the entire night had changed. Information. I finally whispered. What information? Damien folded his arms and leaned slightly against the edge of the desk. That is what we need to discover. I shook my head. You are talking about me like I am carrying state secrets. No, his voice remained calm. I am talking about someone else's belief. The distinction mattered. I could see it in his eyes. It did not matter whether I actually knew anything. If somebody believed I did, the consequences could be exactly the same. The realization made my stomach twist. I sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Exhaustion crashed into me all at once. The long shift. The broken car. The storm. The fear. It felt like a lifetime had passed since I left Manhattan. Damien seemed to notice. He walked toward a side table and poured a glass of water before handing it to me. The gesture was simple. Unexpected. Human. Thank you, I said quietly. He nodded once. Get some rest. I almost laughed. How am I supposed to sleep after this conversation? For the first time all evening, a genuine smile appeared. Brief. Small. But real. Fair point. The smile vanished as quickly as it had come. His phone vibrated again. He glanced down and read a message. Whatever he saw seemed to confirm something. What now? I asked. Damien looked at me carefully. My team located the employee who resigned from that project 6 weeks ago. And he disappeared 2 days later. A chill moved through me. Not because of danger. Because of mystery. Because every answer seemed to create 3 more questions. This is insane. I know. I am just a normal person. You were yesterday. The words were not cruel. They were simply true. Silence settled between us. I stared into the water glass. Damien stared toward the storm. Somewhere downstairs, I heard Maria speaking softly to someone. The ordinary sound grounded me. Reminded me the world had not completely lost its mind. Eventually I stood and walked toward the window one final time. The rain had begun to weaken. The violent storm that had driven me to this house was slowly fading into a light drizzle. Dawn could not be more than a few hours away. Damien. Yes. Do you ever get tired? He looked surprised by the question. Tired of what? Always carrying responsibility. Always solving problems. His gaze drifted toward the dark horizon beyond the estate. For the first time, he looked older than 34. Not physically. Emotionally. Every day. The honesty caught me off guard. Then he looked back at me. But some responsibilities find you whether you want them or not. Neither of us spoke after that. We simply stood there listening to the rain. 2 strangers from completely different worlds brought together by one impossible night. Finally, Damien moved toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. Olivia. Yes. His expression softened slightly. The first time you walked through that door, you thought you were looking for help. I nodded. Maybe. There was that word again. Except this time it sounded different. Warmer. Almost hopeful. Damien opened the door and looked back one last time. I think we both were.